Well, hello, everyone. Today, I have the privilege of sitting down with Jacqualin and her dad, Lonny, and daughter, Lillian, to talk about caregiving for Lonny's wife, Yvette, Jacqualin's mom. So welcome to the podcast. I'm so grateful that you're here and just willing to have this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So your mom passed away in 2012. How old were you?
I was 18, so it was just when I was starting to look at colleges and everything, and just after I graduated, right?
Yep.
And what did she have, like a diagnosis or what?
So she had leukemia for 5 years. So she went into remission about a year before.
She was diagnosed.
She was diagnosed my freshman year.
Her halfway between her junior and sophomore year, she relapsed.
Yeah. So my senior year, she relapsed into, having leukemia again and having to go through treatments. And then, so it would have been about a year after because I did community college. But so while I was in college at Metro, she got a stem cell transplant.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, it wasn't the cancer that killed her. It was like problems with like plasma and a whole different like blood disease.
Okay. So you were on this like up and down cancer journey, and then it was ultimately something else.
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely attribute it to the cancer because she wouldn't have had to go through the stem cell transplants and everything like that. But yeah, because she had to go through all that, it led to that.
In the end, her body couldn't take the treatments anymore.
Yeah.
Basically is what happened.
And I think we kind of, we hear about people going through cancer treatments and being survivors, but I think when you really, the treatment's no longer working, and that's what happened with my father-in-law, was ultimately the doctor said, the treatments aren't actually working for you anymore, and the treatment themselves is doing more harm than good at this point. Like he had 2 hospital stays where he was in organ failure.
Jeez. Wow.
So I don't know. I think it just gives us a reminder that this is not an easy road, and it's not simple to be.
No, in the beginning, we were babes in the woods, as I like to say. Yeah. We didn't know anything, but we did learn one thing when her first hospital stay, the first week, we didn't want her to be in the hospital.
Yeah.
So we learned how to do IVs, and we basically became nurses, and we kept her home. Between her actual hospital treatments where she had to be at the hospital for her chemo, the rest of the time we kept her at home and we took care of her.
So for Jacqualin, we had discussed, like, there's this kid point of view, and then there's of course the spouse partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what you're doing, it captures the like spousal part of it. Even like the older kid going through it. But I mean, I was 14 when she was first diagnosed.
She was 14 and we both became caregivers instead of husband and daughter.
Yeah. So like I was helping my mom throw up in the bathroom, and I shaved her head. And like I grew up within a couple months.
Right.
I went from medicine, shots, cleaning IVs.
Yeah. She had diabetes at one point, so we had to manage that. she was afraid of giving herself the shots. So like that was up to us. So, and then my brother, he couldn't handle it. So like he wasn't there to help. I had an adopted sister at the time, and that was too much for her. So she wasn't there to help.
Basically,
So,
pretty much we were abandoned and left to our, just
yeah.
us two.
Yeah. Left to
Yeah.
your own devices. Do you feel like that changed your relationship, the dynamics of the two of
Yes.
you? Did it happen like in the moment, or was it something that
I think it developed because we stopped being like my dad. I mean, he's my dad. I feel like he became more of my dad, but more of like a partner in the like psychological and physical journey that we're going through.
right? The heavy lifting.
And we had to depend on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most people, including like you said, her brother or my son and an adopted daughter we had, they couldn't handle it. It was basically they just walked away.
Yeah.
So that
And-
kind of hurts a little bit.
I mean, yeah. So then you're also navigating and dealing with that loss. Like you're in the fight, trying to fight for the life
Yeah.
of one person, and you're struggling with these other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you, when you think back to that time, is there anything that you can remember that really helped you get through each day?
Honestly, it kind of goes by in a blur. Like each day blended into each other because I mean, we didn't really get into any kind of supports or even talking to like therapists or anything until she was long gone. Like it was years afterward before either of us saw anybody.
Saw a therapist.
Yeah.
Which we still do today.
Yeah. And I mean, at the time it was more of like, I have to do this to keep her alive.
Right.
This isn't about me. This is about her. Like, if I want to see her later in my life, I have to do this. Like, I have to make her eat when she doesn't want to eat. I have to give her water. I have to stay up with her at night, give her shots.
I think my background probably helped a lot for me is becoming a caregiver, military. I had experience with being in the hospital. I had experience with being sick a couple of times also. But my mantra in my life was to fight to stay alive. So I think that helped. Hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Well, yeah, I mean, especially military, it seems very mission based. Like this is our mission at hand.
And like I said, when she first went to the hospital the first week, the second day, no, it was the first day, we left and they called us to come back right away. And she had a reaction to a medication. Basically, she had a heart attack.
Yeah. They ended up, because we had been with her almost 24/7, and they were like, no, go home, like you need to rest. And that night we got a call and they're like, she's having a huge reaction to all the medication or something. We're transferring her to a different hospital. So this huge like thing happened in like hours of us not being with her.
Do you feel like that? Oh, go ahead, Lonny.
So that's when I knew we had to take care of her ourselves, because most people know, or I don't know if most people know, but I knew that to survive that kind of stuff, even at the VA hospital, it's better to be at home with family who can take care of you. But it's less traumatic and less hardship on the body as far as medication and nurses. And
and she hated being at the hospital.
she did hate being in the hospital.
Because she ended up staying, she had to stay so she moved from Creighton to UNMC. And she stayed at UNMC, I think it was 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah.
Before we got her home,
Yeah, before we could get her home, because she was on so many different medications, and when they brought her into UNMC that night, UNMC was like, we're taking her off all the medications and starting over.
Wow.
Basically.
So it took her several weeks just to like transfer between the medications and for them to figure it out. And then they wanted to monitor her. So
Can you talk a little bit about the juggle of that? Because obviously you were in high school, so you're still trying to go to classes and then.
No, I
No?
withdrew her from high school.
So
She was homeschooled
kind of. So the first half of
first.
my freshman year, I stayed in school, but I probably still missed half of the first half because I was at the hospital, or I was there so long or early in the morning, so I was tired during the day. And then I'd go back, get assignments and try to do them. And I started failing almost all of my classes.
Mm.
So both my mom and my dad both were like, well, why don't we just take you out and we'll homeschool you? That way, you know, you can do work on your own time. So I did that through sophomore and junior year as well.
And that's the balance. That's what worked for the family, that you were able
Yeah.
to do that. And then your senior year, did you go back to the building?
I think it was halfway through my junior year, I ended up doing half days. So I was still half homeschooled. So I did like my main classes at home, which was really easy because I was really like self-taught by that point. So sorry.
It's all right, Lillian. Hi, Lillian.
But yeah, so I was really self-taught at that point. I was doing workbooks, I was doing stuff online, experiments by myself, and then I'd go to the school and do like electives and other stuff so I could graduate from the school.
I mean, that takes a lot of grit and tenacity. I mean, that is not, that's pretty impressive that you were able to juggle both of those things.
Yeah.
So Lonnie, were you still able to go to work since Jackie was home being homeschooled?
No, I did not work for a while. For the 5 years that she was ill, I stayed home. We had insurance and things like that, so the cover expenses. So that wasn't actually an issue money wise, but
Okay.
so we were able to. Luckily, we were able to. I was able to stay home and care for her and make sure she got schooling and all that. And, yeah,
that's great. So it sounds like any given day, you didn't really know what to expect based on treatments she needed or her reactions to medicine or how she was going to feel.
There were several times where, you know, she'd get a temperature or something, we'd have to take her to the hospital. And,
right.
She's being more talkative than normal.
and I'm like, what? What is this is weird.
So do you feel like did you guys use any other resources, or was it really just the two of you? Did you have any home health coming in, or?
Yeah, so we had a nurse that would come in. She would deliver like saline bags and stuff. And
basically, so she would just teach us how to use it. We would do it. We did all
Mhm.
her care at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the nurse that came in, so my mom had a port.
PICC line.
Yeah, a PICC line. And she had a PICC line because the port didn't work. So she had a port at one point, which is in your chest, and they just like stab it. And then it didn't really work out, so they had to do a PICC line, which is like, I don't know if you know, but a permanent
into your blood, to your heart.
Yeah, vein into your heart. And so the nurse would come in and flush it out and make sure that it was looking okay and everything. But we changed the bandages on that. When she had the port, we helped keep that clean. It was really weird.
Yeah. And you are not in the medical field at this point, right?
No,
No.
I mean, she had machines that would run the IVs, and we had to hook up the IV to the PIC line, start the machine,
Yeah.
and you had to code the machine to do the medicine the right
Yeah.
way. And
The like whole IV things that are in the hospitals, like the ones that you see there, we had one at home.
Wow.
So like I know how to, I don't know how to do it now, but
we
I
did.
used to know how to like turn off the alarm, how to change it out, like how to get all the air out of it, how to like switch things out. It was, yeah, I was basically a nurse without the training.
Yeah. Well, how did you get that equipment? Like, how did you get it set up for her to be at home? Was that like,
Her insurance covered home health care,
okay,
and the hospital, when I talked to her main doctor, I said we were going to care for her at home. So it was just set up that way. There's a van that would come by and drop off IVs and exchange machines if the battery was dead, and give us the supplies we needed. So
wow,
basically, we had a little hospital in our house.
yeah. It sounds like it. Were you able, like, were you taking rotations of sleeping at night? I know sleep is one of the biggest issues that people that are caring for someone at home have.
I don't even remember.
Wait, what's the question?
If we took shifts sleeping, like taking care of her at night.
I mean, she would sleep through the night mostly,
Mm,
and she basically slept with her in her room, or I did. One of us was there.
At the end,
Mhm.
I slept in the bed with my
yeah.
and then I don't even remember where you slept.
Couch,
Okay.
mostly.
So mom slept in the bed and then you two rotated through who was.
Yeah.
Basically.
But she never really needed anything at night, or if she did, like I don't remember it, you know.
And the other thing is, we had 5 dogs, and they all slept on the bed with her
Yeah.
also.
Oh my
And that was the
God.
other reason we wanted her home with her babies.
Yeah. The fur babies. Wow.
Just like,
Do you feel like as you reflected on that time, I mean, that was a pretty intense 5 years.
Yeah.
Does it feel like it was kind of a blur or a dream, or do you still feel, I mean, that's really in the trenches.
I mean, it's something that I don't think you can ever forget as
Mhm.
far as the trauma of it. And I think that's why both of us now need therapy,
Mhm.
because we didn't deal with it. And even unfortunately, after her first remission, we weren't really, it was hard for us to be husband and daughter for her, because we had become her caregivers.
Mhm.
And to transition back was very difficult. And I'm sure it was very difficult for her not to be able to have a husband and a daughter again.
yeah.
So the worst part, or the regrettable part, is that part of it.
Yeah. And for me now, it feels very blurry, I suppose. Like I try not to remember like all the times that she was sick, and like I don't want to say like decrepit, but like, you know, sickly looking.
Mhm.
Like in my head, I don't want to remember my mom being that way, you know?
Right.
So a lot of it has like kind of changed from all those horrible images to like the time she was happy during that time, or the things that we did together. But I mean, 5 years to me feels like it was a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that you have to talk to your child during that time, the child, it grows up immediately, because you have to talk to them. She talked to me all the time about like, what if I pass away? This is what's going to happen. You know, or like just telling me how she felt. And there's times that she'd be so loopy that she'd tell me things that she regretted in her life, or things that I didn't particularly want to know.
Mhm.
But I don't think she even knew.
that she was saying those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think you started to rebuild your memories of how you wanted to remember her versus how things were at that time?
I've been in a lot more therapy than he has.
Yes.
I don't know. I tend to, I've actually had other trauma prior to this. So I kind of had learned to shut myself off from it.
Mhm.
And I'm just now dealing with all of it. PTSD, I don't know whatever else I have. Apparently I have a lot. But I don't think I actually ever dealt with it until now.
Yeah.
Really.
And I had therapy a couple years after, and because I went into huge depressive states.
Mhm.
I think we both did.
Yeah.
And like we lost the house after she passed away. I was living in the dorms at UNL.
Mhm.
I then started living with my boyfriend at the time, and then we moved to Washington.
We
2
were
years later.
homeless. Yeah. We were homeless for quite a while.
Yeah,
We lived
so
in a car.
in Washington, yeah,
6 months.
we lived 6 months in the car, and then got an I got an apartment on the other side of the state.
Mhm.
And I started going back to school then, and I was still in a huge depressive state, but I started seeing one of the school's counselors
Mhm.
and started having therapy sessions with them pretty regularly. And I think that's when I started to like kind of realize that, you know, there was more good in like having that time with her and being able to have that time with her than, like all the depressive things.
Right. Well, and there was that moment, not a moment, a really long time, those 5 years in that state, and then all of the aftershocks
Yeah.
that occurred.
Biggest aftershock for me was when she first was diagnosed, the doctor said to us 5 years. And I was like, should be cured. I thought she meant she'd be cured in 5 years. I didn't know that.
I didn't take it like that.
You didn't?
Nope.
So, well, that's my therapy, part of my therapy. But yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like we didn't get as much of aftershock of somebody suddenly dying. Because I remember being picked up from Metro when I was there, and like my dad had my mom in the car, and they had gotten like a really bad diagnosis of like everything, because her brain was just like shutting down. It was almost like severe dementia.
Mm.
Yeah.
And like she stopped talking. There were some times when she was lucid, but she very quickly degraded, and they pretty much said she was brain dead.
Yeah. I
And
think
then
a couple days after that, didn't you?
I know, because that was in October, so it was a couple
October.
months.
She didn't go till January.
Yeah, so we had New Year's Eve was probably the last day that she was lucid. And then New Year's Day, she was in the hospital, and 12 days later,
She died.
we had to pull the plug.
So you had to make a decision about that
Yes.
point.
I think that decision was the easiest one for us, though, when we pulled the plug. She
No.
had suffered enough.
No,
For me,
for you.
I didn't want her to suffer anymore.
I've had plenty of therapy about this, but so my brother was there and my adopted sister were there, and they spent a day or two in the hospital, kind of just like saying goodbyes and everything. But I'm the youngest out of all of them, mind you, and they had taken me out into the hallway and said the decision was mine. And that is probably the most traumatic thing that like mentally I've ever gone through.
Mhm.
Of course, like we talked about this recently, but he had already talked to the doctor and made the decision. So it wasn't mine, thank God. But yeah,
But in that
Basically-
moment,
I
Yeah.
thought it was mine.
yeah,
I was told it was mine. It like in my head as an 18-year-old, the life of my mother was in my hands.
right.
But yeah, I think for me, letting her go was the best thing I could do for her. That's
Oh,
how I
yeah.
thought about it.
Yeah, it was definitely the best thing. Like she wasn't there.
No.
And she wanted a DNR, so, and they had resuscitated her, so it was
Yeah,
even against her wishes to be resuscitated and on the tube, so,
I mean, the day prior, they said, do you want her resuscitated? I said, no. She says no,
yeah,
because we asked her.
yeah. They had resuscitated her when we weren't there,
Yeah.
and we
The
actually,
medical staff did.
because she had like a stroke or something, I don't remember what.
She had a severe stroke, and they showed us both the x-rays when we first got there that next morning. The morning that we unplugged her, and it was black.
Yeah,
Her brain was gone.
yeah, it was like completely gone. But yeah, we got mad a little bit because they weren't supposed to like resuscitate her.
But we had all kinds of trauma during this thing, though. We had like, okay, she had to have her gallbladder removed. And the cardiac team came in and said, we are against this. You shouldn't do it. And we're like, well, she has to have it done because she's in pain all the time. And they were, well, God bless her soul, because she's not going to make it through surgery. And we're like, what? And the cardiac surgeon is like, no, I got this. So we had to trust him, and we call him God to this day,
Mhm.
because he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He fixed her. But yeah,
So it just was not a straight path.
no, definitely not a straight path. We
Not
had
a straight path.
a lot of ups and downs the whole 5 years. There were all kinds of weird things that would happen.
I mean, there was a whole period where, I mean, she was in remission and we're like, yay, like we don't have to deal with this again. And I think that lasted 6 months, a year, something like that.
Lasted about a year, and then she went for a routine at her doctor's office, and they gave us a call back about an hour later. There's something wrong, blah, blah, they were all freaked out, freaked us out. So we had to start all over again.
I do remember,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I do remember that one thing I will never have done is a bone biopsy without any kind of anesthesia. Because
Barbaric.
it is actually really barbaric. Like they basically just like, they give you a local anesthetic, like just numb it up, and then like pound this hollow thing into your hip with a hammer and then like grind it into your hip for the bone. And like they're screaming like you're being tortured.
Oh my God.
And they do that thing to kids, and I was like, this is barbaric. As soon as I said that, every time she had it done after, because she had to have it done a lot, they would put anesthesia on her.
Yeah,
They wouldn't do it without her being under.
Well, she wasn't completely under, but it was.
But I mean a local, so it wouldn't hurt her.
It was like, it was much better.
Yeah,
Like
much
a
better.
twilight phase versus
yeah.
just a local shot in that.
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it sounds
my
like you learned as you went and you adjusted course for future.
Oh yeah.
we learned a lot of different things about hospitals are not your angels that people think they are.
No, some people in the hospitals are pretty heartless.
Yeah.
And we hear about them all the time as well, like in the news and stories that you hear, and which is so sad. But
What were you gonna say, Lonnie? I interrupted you, I think.
What?
do you remember you were gonna say something? Okay.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, one reason I wanted to be on your podcast too was because what you're offering to people is something that I feel like we could have benefited with at the time.
Like when after she passed, I wanted to do talks and to tell people like check your insurances, because you don't, if you have the right insurance, you won't have to make a car payment or your house payment or things like that. It depends on what insurance you got and what electives you've received, but and there's also help through the Leukemia Society, and I gave some talks to new people that I would meet while we're waiting for her to get her treatment. I talked to them and say, hey, do this, this, and this, because they'd have like deer in the headlight look on their face, especially the parents with kids. And I'm saying, don't let them dictate. You dictate. You tell them what you want, and my advice is to make sure you take them home.
Yeah.
Don't leave them in the hospital.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But we never like the support groups and everything.
There weren't any.
There
There were.
Yeah. But I mean, it's hard to get to a support group when you're the main people taking care of the person.
Right.
Like, I wish there
yeah.
had been like Zoom things that you could do and like just exercises that we could have done where there, or just one-on-one phone calls we could have made with somebody. But that wasn't available at the time. And if it was, it wasn't like shoved in your faces, here you go.
I think back then it wasn't prevalent, but I think it's more prevalent now. There's people to talk to now more.
Well, yeah, that's what Michelle does.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, and 10 years ago, we had Skype or some other platforms, but you're right. It just wasn't as prevalent as it is now, where there are support group, there's you can have doctor appointments
Yeah.
online, some of those type of consults too.
Mhm.
What got you out of bed in the morning for each of you? I mean, you had such different vantage points as the husband and daughter. Like, what got you out of bed in the morning? How did you?
Well, when we were taking care of her, she needs her medication, and it becomes a job. Basically, it's your job, and taking care of her, it's like taking care of a child. Actually,
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. It's like taking care of a child. And then I don't know. I'm not a quitter, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I try to teach her not to be a quitter.
Yeah. I mean, he had her a lot in the mornings. So a lot of the times I would end up sleeping until like 12. My junior and senior year, I ended up sleeping until about 11 before I had to go to school. And I mean, at that time it was school, then the hospital, do work, like homework and stuff for homeschooling. And then I'd go home, or it was school, work, hospital, go home. So, I mean, most of the time I woke up because I had to go to school.
Right. Yeah. Lonnie, have you gone back to work since then?
Yeah, I worked in Seattle as a manager at a Travel Centers of America, and then she was going to school in Spokane. And that particular job was kind of ending a little bit. The industry was changing. And then I moved to Spokane. I worked there for BNSF Railway for a while, and I don't work anymore right now.
You're retired.
I came here.
Yeah, he's retired. He's a nanny, basically.
Oh, that's so great.
I help with my granddaughter here.
Yeah. So he lives with us, so he's kind of a live-in nanny.
That's
He helps a lot
perfect.
around the house, so it takes a lot of stress off of myself and my husband.
Yeah. Well, and to give that intergenerational experience for Lillian.
Yeah.
So great. So what do you think people need to hear or know? Like from the child perspective and from the husband perspective, what do you think if someone's listening to this and they have a kid at home that's helping with this heavy lifting, what do you think that they need to know?
I don't know, my advice is ask questions. The doctors don't always know the right thing. If you, second opinions we had, but my biggest one is do not leave them in the hospital if you can at all costs, bring them home. Only leave them at the hospital for procedures where they absolutely have to be there.
Mm.
I think being home, she went into remission faster than most. We had, like I said, we had dogs. They slept with her. They were always in the bed with her. We were there with her. When we take her out once in a while, she'd see friends, put a smile on her face because she'd get to talk to somebody she knew.
Mhm.
But that's my biggest. And then my second one is you have to take care of, which we didn't do, yourselves also, because the mental hardness of it just grows on you and it wears on you after a while.
Mhm.
And you become cold, I guess, maybe a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then other people say, why are you so cold? Or why you don't blah, 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 you know, relationships with other people, women for me.
Mhm.
It's like, you're so heartless. And I'm like, what? You don't show any emotion. Things like that.
Yeah.
I think for being on the kid end of it, like it's hard because I don't want to like not blame him, but like there weren't, we didn't know of all the resources. Like he didn't know of all the resources that we could have used that probably could have stopped me from being so in it, experiencing so much trauma at a young age. But my advice to parents is like get as much help as possible, get the home health care, like get the nurse that comes every single day to help, like try to let your kids be kids.
Yeah.
And like if they are there, like don't lie to them about anything. But you also don't have to, you know, traumatize them.
Yeah, I probably went too far with that because with her, she knew everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was there for almost every single doctor visit, every single procedure.
When she's in the hospital.
I was there
we
every
go.
single day in the hospital.
And my side of it is I wanted her to spend as much time with her mother as possible.
Mhm.
And I felt that the way we handled it was the best way I could do that for her, so she could be with her mother. And that was why I didn't want to leave her in the hospital. And later on, I found out it's better that they're not at the hospital because they get more sick there. But yeah.
Yeah, and then like I think being in the hospital every day would, I think that was good, but being with her at every procedure and everything, I don't think I had to have been there.
No.
I think it caused a bit of trauma.
There were a lot of times when we'd bring her home from the hospital, but she'd have to go and get plasma transfers, and
Yeah.
we would sit there for hours
Yeah. And
while that was happening.
yeah. And while I got that time with my mom, like that's ingrained in my head.
Mhm.
And it's probably a bit more than I probably should have gone through. But I mean, also just talking to your kids about what they want to do. Because some kids will probably be like, yeah, I want to be there for everything. And some kids will be like, no, I don't want to see her go through that.
I mean, I guess that's my fault. I wanted her to, like I said, be with her mother as much as possible. But
I mean, once I got into like, when she went to relapsed, that's probably when we were the most caregivers because she deteriorated so quickly. And so again, like I said, it was basically having a severe dementia patient in your home.
Right.
So then I was like, no, I want to be there. This is what I'm doing. But like my freshman year, I was 14. I had no idea what was going on. I don't think a 14-year-old probably should have gone through as much as I went through then.
So this really can tear families so far apart, and you are still very much connected. You're living together. He's helping with your child. It's so beautiful. How have the two of you maintained such a strong connection? Because obviously moving to Washington, being homeless for a period of time, also added to the
Yeah.
compounded trauma. How have you two kept it together? Because I feel like over and over, experiences that families are going through, people are just, it's shredding them apart, and they can't regroup.
And they usually end up divorced or not connected to that person
Yeah.
and all that.
Which happened with my brother.
Yeah.
So I tried to reach out several times with him, but I think it's just hit him way too hard. He feels things on a huge, deep level.
Mm-hmm.
And has quite a bit of like mental problems himself. So, I mean, it did tear us apart in a way, but I mean, we were in it the entire time. And communication, I think, helps. Especially now, like we lived in a car together for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So going through that, we had plenty of time to talk about things. We did a lot. And we both
That's what it is.
we both got therapy and stuff, so I think that helps.
I don't know. I think I look at it as like we were warriors.
Yeah.
We fought together. And it just gives you a strong bond, I think.
Yeah.
We've always raised her to be independent, and she is, and we've always been upfront with her about everything. So I feel, yeah, I feel like we were warriors. We survived.
I think that's a good analogy too, because I mean, warriors, especially like people that fought in the same war in the same like battalion or whatever, they tend to stay friends forever, or they tear apart. Like it's one way or the other. There's no really middle ground there.
Like either it's so painful to be together because it's such a reminder, or it pulls you apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Lillian.
Yeah.
She can see herself. Well, what do you have any final thoughts for people? I think this has been really helpful and beautiful for you two to be willing to sit down and share this, because again, so many families are on this road together and struggling. I feel like some of the thing that I heard all throughout our time together is using resources, being advocates,
Yeah.
making sure that you're taking care of yourselves. It's hard to know what that could look like.
Yeah.
Therapy definitely has been part of your recovery.
Yes.
And your continued closeness.
Yes. I think doing what's best for yourself and like helping others for sure, like being advocates, so other people aren't going through the same thing you're going through. And then you get your comfy face. Yeah. But yeah, definitely resources. I feel like there's a lot more resources that are readily available now than there used to be. So like I said earlier, like we would have paid the whole amount for your stuff if it would have helped us get through it, because it's easy to use. And I mean, what do you think?
I think nowadays it's a whole lot different than we did it. And they do have more resources, and I think they do change. I think they have changed the way they handle leukemia patients
They do.
nowadays. But back when we were doing it, was a learning experience, and you became basically nurses. And
Mhm.
I think if we would have had more resources, I don't know if I would have used them personally as far as therapy goes at the time, but I know she would have.
I would have, yeah.
It took me all these many years just to go to therapy for my military, and some other things that happened in my life. But yeah, I'm kind of stubborn that way.
Yeah, but I mean, there were several times that I thought about going to like the support groups and everything, but I didn't want to go there in person. Like I was exhausted.
Right.
So like doing Zoom, if that had been an option, then I probably would have done it.
Right.
That's the other thing I wanted to say. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
We were exhausted for 5 years.
Right.
And when she was going to UNL, she was living in a dorm, and I was staying with her stepsister.
My adopted sister, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I mostly like slept or relaxed or whatever. It took a long time to get over it.
Yeah.
Not only mentally but health wise also. It was very difficult.
Very, very physically and emotionally demanding.
Emotionally,
Yeah.
mentally, physically,
Mhm.
exhausting.
It's pretty much like having a baby.
Pretty much like this one.
Except, you know, a bit more traumatic.
This one,
Yeah.
it's like she never makes a peep until right now.
Yeah.
She says, let's get the focus back on me, please.
Yeah.
I'm really, again, very grateful that you were willing to come on and share your story. And I really feel confident that hearing about your experience and what you two went through is truly going to help so many other people. Because
I hope so. I don't feel we've like put everything out there, but tried to.
Putting everything out there would probably be emotional messes right now.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah. And people are operating at the speed of information. And I feel like what you have shared is the information that people needed to hear right now who are hearing it.
yes,
So-
I want people to know that there's help out there. Like if your podcast can reach the parents of kids that are going through this, I know that I have succeeded in something.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Well, thank you so much. If there's anything else that like pops into your mind that you're like, oh, maybe we should have talked a little bit more about that, you can always email me and then I can just add it into the show notes. Like
course,
a note from Jacqalin.
Beautiful. Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you both so very much.
Thank
Thank you for having us.